The Braves have handled the Marlins pretty easily, or about as easily as it can be in the first two games of the series. It's looking like two teams in different directions. We got Peter on today. We're going to discuss everything Braves and Marlins on today's episode of Locked On Braves and Locked On Marlins. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Braves and Locked On Marlins. I am your host of Locked On Braves, Jake Mastriani, and joining me today is Peter Pratt of Locked On Marlins. And it's going to be an exciting crossover episode here today. Been wanting to have Peter on for so long. If you haven't already, make sure you're checking out Peter and his work over at Locked On Marlins and on social media, where he is just a great follow. Hilarious. Sometimes I wish he'd use the sarcasm font so we'd know just for sure, but he is a great follow on social media over there. Peter, I'm so glad to have you on for this episode. Should be a lot of fun.
100%. Thanks for the intro. And this has definitely been a long time coming, this show, this crossover. So I'm pumped for it. Really pumped.
Yeah, and despite maybe what's happened, Peter's still very enthusiastic and ready to talk about some Miami Marlins. Before we do that, though, this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. All right, Peter, I know it's a tough conversation, but from my vantage point, looking at it as a Braves fan, an NL East opponent, a fan of baseball, I see the Miami Marlins. I see some young talent coming up. I see them make the postseason. And then this offseason, I see everything go backwards. Is that kind of the way that you view it as well, with the lack of moves, the front office changes? You got a lame duck manager over there. It seems like we were on the rise, and now we're taking a big step back.
What the hell's gone on in Miami? What the hell? Like, what are we doing here? Postseason, 5th seed. You're thinking, okay, this rebuild, it's finally built. Maybe you add a few more, clearly you need a few more pieces to supplement that. But man, oh man, there's been a rebuild already, and that has happened in the front office. If that's your only moves is to add in 9 assistant GMs or whatever it might be, then that's a bad indicator of where your club is at if they're prioritizing front office moves and not the major league roster. So, yeah, it started with the Kim Ang news, because for me, I was a massive fan of the way Kim operated, primarily because for the first time in some years, it's felt like the Marlins and the front office have been all in. That was the indication they gave in 23. Like, the Marlins were buying at the deadline. I mean, when did that happen last?
Some good buys, too. Berger, Josh Bell. I mean, some good buys.
Yeah, some nice moves. Like, I must say, some people, however you look at Kim Ang, what I would say is her trading, she was pretty good. Like, where she was selling, maximize the value. Equally, those acquisitions of Bell and Berger, like, they were momentum shifters where the season was starting to tip away a little bit. So, listen, for Kim Ang, deciding to decline her option, that was the sign, right? That was the first sign. It's like, man, what's happening with Kim, and why is she opting out of the Marlins at this point off the back of that situation? Then it starts to filter through. Hey, we're bringing in a president of baseball ops. That's going to be someone that's from the Rays. You know what that means? It starts to mean we're going to start to try and mimic the Rays, and we all know what that means. It's spend little money, build the farm. The Marlins right now, farm system is poor. Like, there's no getting away from that. But they've been all in. Their moves, they've been all in, and guys have graduated. So it was a confusing offseason for us Marlins fans. And the situation they're currently in is not a totally unexpected situation at this point, where Sandy's missing, Yuri's missing, a few key injuries kick in. You don't add to the roster, you subtract. Your closer blows a few games. Next thing is you're like, man, you're 13 games under 500. And it's not even May. So, boy, oh boy, it's been a tough few weeks to get rolling here, no doubt.
Yeah, and in the Marlins' defense, as you mentioned, it was a team that was built on dominant starting pitching, and half of that pitching is now gone, at least in the rotation side of things. That's a tough tough blow there to that Miami team, and what made them so successful is that they could pitch, and that what kept them in games, kept them in a lot of close games last year. Won a lot of one-run games last year because they pitched so well, scored just enough to get those wins. But you take that pitching away, obviously it makes things a lot more difficult. But even just, without that, like we talked about, the moves that they weren't made, the lack of moves to improve a team that looked like it was on the rise, maybe stepping up in the division. And now you look at it, I think the Nats have passed them by. Obviously, the Mets are in somewhat of a rebuild, but, at least they're playing good baseball. Say rebuild for the Mets, retool, whatever you want to call it. It's still highest payroll in baseball. And Philly Braves, obviously, there at the top. I want to get your perspective, because I know Braves fans on Locked On Braves are always asking, me to get people to come on to give kind of outsiders view of what they think of the Braves. Obviously, you're very close to it, being in the NL East. What are your thoughts on maybe not just this Braves team in particular, but just this Braves, team, front office, everything? What are your thoughts on the Braves?
Well, let's start with we've had some GM talk, we've had some like front office talk. So for me, I think there's a clear difference maker between the Marlins and Bravos for me, and it's like AA is just the king. And for me, the success starts there. Like I look at how he operates, it's elite. And the way his moves, like you have to piece, what is there to the naked eye? It isn't. There's another 4 moves that are about to come and happen. And that's the thing. Like you don't see it until it just smacks you in the face. You're like, oh, okay, now I get it. So as an operator, as a trader, impressive. But the other thing too, this is where it's so tough for Marlins fans. The method is you build it up and then you trade these dudes. The Braves, they find the talent, they develop the talent, and they extend the talent. And again, it's just a clear difference. It's a clear differentiator between the Braves and the Marlins, the way they operate. Like the Marlins are trying to mimic the Rays. I want to see the Marlins mimic the Braves, to be honest with you. Like they're winners. For as much as you want to talk about the Rays and their model, they've never won a thing. They've won a few divisions and, got to a few World Series or whatever it might be, but they've never won a thing. The Braves have. Appreciate there's been a few years in between some of those World Series, but, for me, they are the class of Major League Baseball by some distance, in my opinion. The pitching issue, though, right? Like the Spencer Strider news is tricky to deal with, right? Like we've seen it with Sandy. You lose your ace. Yeah. It's hard to build around that. But again, it's just next man up and the talent's there and Elder rolls up and next thing is he's a stud. So what an organization.
Yeah, and I think one of the big differences, too, is the Braves are spenders now. And not that the Braves have ever been a small market team, one of the lower budgets, but they've been kind of in the mid-tier for a while. But here in recent years, they are spending like we've never seen. I never thought we'd see a day where they would go over the luxury tax threshold. Now we're talking about pushing the 3rd threshold in overages. So it really is a difference there. Obviously, we got to figure things out in Miami. How do you get fans in that stadium? Look, I've never been there. I'm sure it's a great stadium, still fairly new. And we've seen it be filled. I watched some of those Winter Leagues games where it's packed out there and the atmosphere is great. It's possible. There are baseball fans in Miami, but when you have situations, and I know I'm telling your Marlins listeners what they already know, but you have situations like this offseason where you're going in the right direction, you take a step back. It's hard to build up that continuity in fanship, if you want to call it that. And it's hard to generate that revenue from fans.
That's at the core of it, right? We've all seen it. It feels like the Marlins generally as an organization are prioritizing things like the WBC and the Caribbean League because it packs it out. There are baseball fans in Miami, in South Florida. Clearly they are. They show out, but they're not fans of the Marlins because they've been hurt too many times. The messages and the signals given out are, we're not here to win. We're just here to, I don't actually know what the point of the Marlins is, to be honest with you at this point. Like for Bruce Sherman and the ownership, like I don't know if this is just a profit-making exercise for him. And that's it. And it's all about just increasing revenues and keeping payroll down. I don't know. It's a really challenging, it's a tough sell. to Marlins fans clearly for those listening, the Braves fans listening, thinking, I don't recognize that South Florida accent. Yes, I'm based in the UK, so it's hard for me to give like the true read on the market. But I've spoken to enough people, and the primary reason is it's just that lack of sustained effort to be a winner. It is too much of you have a spike, a single year spike of success, and the next year it starts a rebuild and a teardown again. You want to just see build on success. And bounce out of the wild card isn't even success, really. Yeah. But now we're into a rebuild phase this year. So, yeah, to your point, like there is a market there, but the Marlins just aren't tapping into it. And that's a big problem.
And the last thing I'll say on this too, because it's something you already touched on, the Braves are getting this talent and they're keeping that talent. And you talked about Marlins possibly trying to model themselves after the Rays. Rays aren't drawing fans either, and they are winning. And they're still not drawing fans. And I think part of that is just because they know this good talent that they have, as soon as they seem they're expendable or they're too expensive, they're gone. Yeah. And you don't see that with the Braves. They're getting this young talent and they're locking them up, through their core. So Braves fans know they can buy a Michael Harris jersey. They can, go get a Ron Acuna Jr. jersey, and they know he's going to be there for a long time. Rays don't do that. Marlins obviously haven't done that. The Rays, to their, I guess, credit, but now it's looking pretty bad. They tried to do that with Wander Franco, and obviously that situation went south pretty quickly. But that's another thing I look at with the Rays, and obviously now with the Marlins potentially modeling that. They're just not giving fans something to hang on to, a reason to keep going back out to the park, a player that they can rally around that's their guy that's going to be there. I just don't see that with the Rays or even, the Marlins, like I said. Next, I want to give Peter a chance to ask me some questions. We're going to continue this discussion about the Braves and the Marlins, where both teams are at. Obviously, right now, they're getting ready for Game 3 as we record this live on a Wednesday afternoon. Braves going for the sweep. We'll discuss that as well later in this podcast. We've all been there, Peter, either as a player or a fan. It's halftime. The scoreboard's not looking too good. You're feeling low, not sure your team can pull out that win. That's when you got to just dig deep. Lift your head up, say to yourself, time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heist. Yeah, that's right. I said bank heist, and take as much of Peter's money. Look at Peter with his tie on. He's looking fancy. He's got a lot of money over there to take. You can do it on the new smash hit mobile game, Monopoly Go. It lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's a Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There's so much to do. You can play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards, make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball. That sounds like a lot of fun. And you can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. Spring training is over and baseball season is officially underway. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your PrizePicks entries. Whether it's strikeouts, RBI, or first inning runs, take your pick of more or less and add them to your PrizePick entry today. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action, and you can do so over on PrizePicks today. It's easy. All you got to do, pick 2 to 6 players, pick more or less on certain categories like strikeouts, hits, RBIs, first inning runs, and so much more. You look at your PrizePicks app today, Ronaldo Lopez, they have him at 5 strikeouts. Peter, more or less strikeouts for Ronaldo Lopez there?
I'm smashing the over.
Yeah, I'm hoping so as well, as he's looked really good to begin the year. You can check all that out over on PrizePicks. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with PrizePicks. All right, Peter. So I'm going to pass the microphone over to you, let you ask me some questions, Braves, Marlins, whatever you want to talk about here.
There's only one place to start, to be honest, Jake, and that is a shared friend in some ways, in Marcel Ozuna. What I need to understand is what the hell's going on with Marcel Ozuna right now, and how is he this big of a stud? He is absolutely on fire.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Look, off-field stuff aside for right now, and there's certainly that you have to deal with. But what he has done on the field starting in last May, nobody could have seen coming. I mean, Peter, he was one of the worst hitters. This is not an exaggeration. He was one of the worst hitters in 2021 and 2022. Obviously, missing a lot of time in there for that off-the-field stuff and injuries. This was a guy I would love to know how close the Braves were actually to cutting him and just eating the rest of this contract. That's how bad it was. You go back to the first month of last season in April, it was just so bad. There's just no way they could keep running him out there. And then starting May 1st, he has been one of the, and this isn't an exaggeration either. He's been one of the best hitters in baseball for almost a full calendar year now. It is just incredible what he's been able to do. And for me, what I've talked about with Marcel Ozuna, even before the breakout happened last year, I said, he is somebody that if you give him 140, 150 games, he's going to hit you 30 home runs. He just has that type of power, but he never gave you anything outside of that. It was pretty much home run or bust for him. And the change that I've seen from him since then, he's still giving you power and giving you even more than that. He's a 40 home run hitter now. But what I saw from him last year in the change, he's taking his walks. You saw it in the at-bat the other night. I pointed out before the Travis d'Arnaud home run, the at-bat before that, Marcel Ozuna fell behind, worked the count, worked a walk, got on base, and set up that Travis d'Arnaud home run. He's just becoming a more well-rounded hitter. He'll take his hits the other way. He'll slap a single through the right side. He has just become a guy that contributes in multiple ways now. It's not just home run or bust for him, and there's not just these big dips throughout his season. At least what we've seen for, like I said, the past 5 or 6 months, is just a more well-rounded player. I mean, he has completely turned his career around from a guy that was, I think, weeks away from just getting cut altogether to now he is one of the best hitters in the league.
What changed for him? Like I mean, everyone's probably asking the same question. The guy, you yourself probably as well. Like, what switch was flipped for Marcel to turn into, almost being cut to one of the best hitters in baseball for such a sustained period?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. You go back to last spring training, and Brian Snitker talked about it, and he said in spring training, he said he liked the swings, he liked the quality of contact. You start that April, and it looks like the same Marcel Ozuna, but credit to Snitker, continued to run him out there. He is loyal to a fault, and whatever mechanical adjustments we see he made, whatever changes he's made at the plate, that eventually played out. And like I said, the one thing we know about Marcel, he can turn on an inside pitch better than anyone. That is not something new. You go inside to Marcel Ozuna, you do it at your own risk. But like I said, the one thing that I really noticed about him that changed is that if he is in a count where he needs to look for that pitch away, I'll see him just drop it the other way and shoot it through the other side. Or before, he's just pulling off of it. He's swinging and missing. If it's not inside, he can't get to it. But now he's covering more of the plate. He's able to get to that outside pitch. Now, that's still the hole in his swing. I don't know why anybody continues to throw him inside. I would throw him nothing but off speed down and away. Hopefully, I don't give that tip away to all the pitchers out there that obviously know more than I do. But that is the change, is that he will now mix it up, and he will go for that pitch, and he will take it the other way for just an easy single. And that really, in my mind, is the biggest thing I saw from him, is it's just not this huge hole on the outside of the plate. It's still there, low and away especially, but he's able to cover more of the plate, and he's able to just take his singles to right field.
There was definitely some rumors. The Marlins have had a similar issue with Avisel Garcia. Unfortunately, Avisel Garcia hasn't turned into one of the best hitters in baseball. But there was certainly some rumors swirling at one point that there was maybe a swap in the offing with Avisel Garcia and Marcel Ozuna. I don't know who turned it down or what, the ins and outs, but it was definitely circulating that was a possibility at one point. But it didn't happen, and lucky for the Braves, it didn't. Unfortunately for the Fish, they've still got Avisel Garcia, we saw yesterday in the cleanup spot, which didn't work out so well. The other big storyline here for the Braves for me, well, there's a few, but we have to, I guess, talk starting pitching. The Marlins are dealing with their ace, Sandy, with Tommy John, Yuri Perez, the baby ace, effectively, also down. Spencer Strider out for the year. The question is really, how are the Braves going to handle this situation? And looking forward, considering the Marlins are 100% going to be selling pieces this year, no doubt about it. Like the Marlins, they haven't used this word, but they are in a rebuild. How are the Braves going to handle Strider's situation? Are they going to look to add? And can you see the Braves and Marlins hooking up on something here later down the line for one of the Marlins starters, maybe?
Yeah, the thing is, you can't replace a Spencer Strider. You're just not going to. I mean, he was the NL Cy Young favorite coming into the year. He's a guy that we thought could strike out 300 batters in a season. You're just not going to replace that. Now, fortunately for the Braves, they went out and got Chris Sale in the offseason, and I think they did that with this in mind. Not necessarily that Spencer Strider was going to need surgery and be out for the year, but the fact that going into the last two postseasons, they've gone in limping in the rotation with at least two guys hurt. In the case of Max Fried, he was sick a couple of years ago, coming off a bad illness. They've gone into the postseason with their rotation banged up. And the Chris Sale move kind of adds a little bit more depth there for a veteran arm who still has good stuff that can give you some depth if somebody does go down. Now, there's their own Chris Sale comes with his own risk with his injury issues and history that he has, but could the Braves win with Max Fried, especially the way that he pitched on Tuesday? Could they win with him, Chris Sale, either Charlie Morton or Ronaldo Lopez with the offense that they have? If the offense can manage through that 5-day layoff and come on fire like they have all season long, yes, they certainly can. Do I think they'll look to add at the deadline if the right piece is out there? Yes, I absolutely do. Whether or not that happens with the Marlins, remains to be seen. Obviously, Luzardo, I think, is the name that gets tossed around the most from the Marlins. I know he's had a little bit of a rough start to the season. That would give the Braves 3 lefties. I don't know if that much matters if all 3 are really, really good, but certainly the Marlins have some arms that would be interesting. I don't know that the Braves have the farm system to go out at the trade deadline and get the top starting pitcher that will be available.
Yeah.
They're right there with the Marlins. They're a bottom 5, farm system in all of baseball. They just don't have the assets really to go out and get that. I think the hope is that, Bryce Elder pitches more like the all-star Bryce Elder from the first half of last year. Maybe one of their young guys in AJ Smith-Shawver, Hurston Waldrop, grows up quick enough, and they're kind of off to rough starts at the minor league level this year. But maybe one of them grows up in the second half and comes in and can be a big contributor. I think that's their hope, and they're obviously going to go with those internal options first. But I would not be surprised if the Braves look to add at least a mid-rotation type of starter at the deadline because, again, you're just not going to replace Spencer Strider, and I don't know that they have the trade assets to go out and get somebody for the top of the rotation.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm interested to see how it goes. To your point, the farm system probably is an issue, particularly for someone like Luzardo, where the Marlins are looking to cash in maybe on him, a sizable return, let's say. But we'll wait to see how that goes. I think the other final question here on the Braves, and this is something I've been intrigued about for the last few years, to be honest with you, and it doesn't look to be changing, but one thing that really sticks out is they don't change the lineup. Day in, day out, it's the same crew rolling out there. And I'm just interested to get your take. Like, do you see them flexing away from that at all to try to load management, as it's called? But do you see them looking to do that as you kind of get into the back end of the year, or is it just going to be full steam ahead?
If you ask the players, it's full steam ahead. They don't like those off days. You look at Austin Riley and Matt Olson right now, who are struggling, and maybe they need an off day to kind of reset. But you ask them, they want to be out there. They can't work through it on the bench. They can work through it getting out there every day and getting reps, and that's the way that they deal with it. So Snicker kind of has an open, door that says, hey, if you need a day off, come tell me. Otherwise, you're going to be in there every single day. Now, guys like Arcia will get some rest, as he already has this season. Ozzie Albies already been out with some injury, or is out right now with an injury. But, Acuna, Riley, Olson specifically, those are guys that as long as they're healthy, Michael Harris too, you can throw in there, they're going to be out there every single day. And that's what they want. Now, could that change? Say they were to clinch in mid-September like they did last year. Sure. I imagine they'll get a couple of off days here towards the end of the season. Obviously, injury comes into play. But I don't think there's anything conclusive, at least on the hitter side of thing, that says giving a guy a day off in June, a couple of days off in July, keeps them more fresh for the postseason or dramatically decreases their chances of getting injured. I haven't seen that data that says that it happens. Obviously, the more you're out there, the more chances you have at getting injured. But as far as the freshness factor, I don't think taking a couple of days off in April, May, June, I don't think that really helps keep them fresh for the postseason. And those guys want to be out there. So I think they're going to continue to run them out there and have that same lineup every single day. All right, next, I want to get into what's going to happen tonight between the Braves and the Marlins. Game 3 of the series, Braves looking for the sweep, sending Ronaldo Lopez to the mound. The Marlins sending former top prospect to the mound as well, in what should be a very fun matchup. We'll discuss that more next. Peter, it's never too late to show your mom some love this Mother's Day with DoorDash. Surprise mom with flowers, gadgets, and self-care essentials all in one place, delivered right to her door. Does mom have a sweet tooth? No, mine loves the dark chocolate. Is she a tech enthusiast? My mom doesn't know where the power button is on the computer, so that's not her. Is she a beauty connoisseur, or is she the outdoorsy type? No matter what she's into, you can make her smile with a fruit or flower bouquet, makeup, tech gear, workout wear, and more on DoorDash. Pair flowers with a gift card so she can celebrate any way she wants. Is she a bookworm? That's definitely my mom. Try a bookstore gift card. Does she love a good latte? Get a gift card to her favorite coffee shop. You can't go wrong. Get all your Mother's Day's gifts all in one place. Get 50% off your next order, up to $15 when you spend $15 plus on your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order now with the code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB. Order using DoorDash today. Terms apply. All right, Peter, I know we're just a couple of hours after recording this from the Braves and Marlins getting set for Game 3. Well, let's talk about the matchup a little bit. Ronaldo Lopez, before Max Fried's start on Tuesday, he had some of the best performances for the Braves this year. He's gone 6 innings in each one. He's given up 1 earned or less in all 3 of those. With 2 of those, he didn't give up anything. He's been quite the surprise for the Braves and really needed, obviously, with this injury to Spencer Strider. But I'm really curious about the guy who's starting for the Miami Marlins, because looked like he was going to be a fixture in that rotation for a long time, had several injuries. I know he probably won't be in the game too long just because of pitch count and everything, but Sixto Sanchez gets the ball for the Marlins. What are we going to see from Sixto?
I mean, what a surprise. To be honest with you, I didn't think we would ever say or see this again. Sixto Sanchez as a starter for the Marlins. I mean, it's a pretty sad story, really, in many ways, where considering where he was at 2020 and obviously the COVID year, and his last outing really was that postseason matchup between the Marlins and Braves in the 2020 campaign. So it's been a long, painful road back for Sixto, and he isn't fully back. And with no option years remaining, it was basically roster or bust for Sixto. I don't think the expectation was that he would make the roster. I think the Marlins and Skip Schumacher spoke about this, during spring, that the expectations were super low for Sixto when he came in spring, and he earned his spot, frankly, in the bullpen. So different role, and it's fair to say, once spring's out of the way, it's not been amazing in terms of the outings thus far. They're going with him as a starter now, and you expect him probably a max 2-3 innings, so it's not like a full starter's workload at this point. I do think it's interesting that they're going with that methodology, though, maybe trying to get him in the groove where he knows, okay, I'm starting the game and I can do all of my build-up, all the stuff that a traditional starter would have. So I think that's a really interesting thing to see if it works. But clearly, 3 innings against the Braves lineup is a dangerous proposition for a guy that has really struggled at the big league level this year. And so this is really interesting. Sixto remains, in my opinion, on the roster bubble for the Marlins. And so if things go sour for a sustained period, there's a situation where former top prospect, the big name in the JT Realmuto trade for the Marlins, ends up DFA'd after making, 10, 15 appearances for the Marlins. Again, another botched trade in some ways that has just backfired. But in terms of what we're going to see a lot of changeups from Sixto today. There's a lot of changeups. He can throw the heat, but it's going to be primarily probably off-speed stuff. And listen, I think the nerves will be there for Sixto today, like on the road in Atlanta as a starter. Like I think he'll be feeling it. And I'm very interested to see. For me, I feel like Sixto, when the heat is truly on, the showman comes out in him as well. He wants to entertain. He wants to give you, he wants the K Sally. Like he wants to be doing all of that. And so I'm really interested to see what kind of Sixto we get. What's more likely? 3 innings and 5 strikeouts, or not getting through the first inning? Probably not getting through the first inning and getting completely blown up, to be honest with you. So it could go any way with Sixto. As a fan of him and his story, I'd love to see him start to piece his career back where he can get to a point where he's a starter again. But at this point, that still seems like a real long way away at this point. And yeah, this is going to be his biggest test thus far, I think. We'll see how he goes.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully for the Braves side, it doesn't go very well, and we're seeing a DFA for Sixto Sanchez. But I mean, I'm with you too. I'm obviously a fan of the game as well, and the journey for Sixto, I know has been a difficult one. I'd hate to see it kind of go out like that. Injuries are just a brutal part of the game, especially with pitchers. I know that's been a big topic for this year as well, just all the pitcher injuries that we're having. And I would love to see Sixto get back, to where he was. Let's just hope it doesn't happen on Wednesday night against the Braves. I feel like these bullpen games, it can go either one of two ways. Either the hitters can never really get on track facing a new pitcher every time through, and it's just a dominant performance by the bullpen, or it just completely goes sideways and you lose the game 15-10 or 15-0. It seems like it's one or the other. And hopefully for the Braves' sake, they're able to get some runs on the board and finish off the sweep. Peter, thank you so much for joining the show. It's a lot of fun. I'll definitely be doing this again. I love having you on. Again, make sure you check out Peter on social media at Miami Marlins _UK. Yes, he got that accent over there. Tell me about these shows that he's seeing over in London today. Just incredible, living his life up over there. But Peter, thanks so much for coming on. Make sure you follow us both on social media. Follow Locked On Braves on YouTube, Locked On Marlins on YouTube as well, to get all of your Braves and Marlins content. But that will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves and Locked On Marlins, and we will talk to you next time.